There are words that are not just heard, they are felt. And there are teachings that are not only understood by the mind, but awaken something much deeper. The truth of your being. This is not just any text. I am in action. How to manifest from unity does not speak of external formulas or fleeting desires. It speaks of the greatest power that has existed since the beginning of time. The awareness that you and the divine are not separate. This message is not for those seeking quick fixes. It is for those ready to remember that divinity works through you when you awaken to your true identity. So get ready. You will not just hear words. You will reconnect with your power, with your purpose, with your origin, because the I Am is already in action, and now it's your turn to manifest from the only thing that is eternal unity. There comes a point in spiritual life where the soul, already tired of repeating others' words, of walking in circles around the altar, of seeking God as one chases a shadow, stops. And in that stopping, in that deep silence, in that void which the world fears but the Spirit loves, something is revealed. God is not out there. God is not waiting for me. God does not examine me. God does not grant me rewards. God is in me, waiting for me to express Him. That is the turn that separates the believer from the manifester, the seeker from the finder, the spiritual beggar from the awakened son. For a long time, perhaps your whole life up to this point, you prayed for things. You asked for help, for provision, for companionship, for direction. And though many times you were heard, many times it seemed God did not respond. Not because He didn't want to, but because you were praying from the wrong consciousness. You believed God was separate from you, and therefore your prayer became a plea, a request, a fearful hope. And everything that is asked from separation knows lack, and everything that vibrates in lack cannot receive fullness. Here, we will correct that root, not to deny yourself, but to remind you of what you already are, and in remembering, manifesting it. Because the time has come to move from supplication to expression, from seeking to certainty, from prayer as a plea to prayer as an affirmation of I am. This is the teaching that transforms not just the way of praying, but the way of existing. I've seen thousands of people ask God to intervene in their lives as if He were a king in the heavens with distant authority. But what they have not yet understood, and what you are ready to accept, is that God does not intervene from the outside. God expresses from within. The most common mistake of the good but asleep soul is to keep asking the Creator for what only it can allow. God cannot give you peace if you insist on holding on to conflict. He cannot give you abundance if your consciousness is soaked in fear. He cannot manifest as healing if you believe more in sickness than in life. Supplication comes from doubt, but the expression of I am comes from truth, and truth does not beg, it declares. Truth does not wait, it manifests. Truth does not offer itself, it reveals itself. You are not here to receive from God as one receives alms. You are here to be the living extension of the Creator in this plane, not as an exception, but as the norm. Jesus, our elder brother in the manifestation of Christ, never asked God for things as a beggar would. He spoke from unity, from identity, from I am. That's why He said, I and the Father are one. Do you see the difference? There is no trace of supplication, only expression. There is only absolute faith that the good has already been given, and the only thing required is for someone to recognize it, declare it, and allow it. And that someone is you. You are not a mistake that needs to be corrected. You are an idea that needs to manifest. You are not on this earth to achieve things. You are here to allow what has already been created in the Spirit to take form through you. You are not a mortal limited by occasional spiritual connection. You are an eternal spirit having a visible experience that responds exactly to your level of consciousness. And if you change your level of consciousness, you change your world, not by effort, but by emanation. The most subtle and yet most common mistake of the soul in the process of awakening is believing that God is far away, far in the sky, far in time, far in some higher plane that is reached through merit, sacrifice, or hidden techniques. But this belief, so deeply rooted in prayers and the dogmas of centuries, is the main barrier to the flourishing of divine consciousness. Because what you believe to be far, you cannot embody, and what you do not embody remains a hope without form, a truth without power. The truth, the only truth, is this: God does not come, He is. He is not attracted, He is awakened. He is not conquered, He is allowed. Every search that begins with the idea that you are separated from the presence is already a misguided journey. Even though it may be full of good intentions, you cannot attract what already is. You cannot ask for what has never left. You cannot invoke a presence that is the very foundation of your existence. What you must do is make yourself available. Think of the sun. You do not have to attract its light. You only have to remove the curtain. God is like that sun, always present. But if you insist on looking down, if you insist on closing your eyes, if you insist on covering yourself with doubts, you will not experience its warmth even though it surrounds you. And how is the presence awakened? With attention, with reverence, with inner silence, with gratitude, without motive, with the simple act of remembering that everything has already been given. Awakening is not a mystical event with heavenly flames. It is a constant decision to dwell in truth. It doesn't matter if you get distracted. It doesn't matter if you fall. Just return. Return to remembering God is not coming to me. God is already in me. Nothing you experience is external to you. Nothing you live is a coincidence. And though it may hurt to realize it at first, nothing happens to you. Everything is expressed from within you. We live in a spiritual universe governed not by chance, nor by the whimsical forces of the material world, but by a single law that organizes and reflects everything, the law of consciousness. Your life is not what happens. It is what you are holding as true within you. Every person you meet, every circumstance you repeat, every success or setback, none of these are random. They are exact reflections of the vibrational content of your consciousness. This is not judgment. This is not blame. This is law. The human soul, while still asleep, believes it is a victim of the world. But the soul that begins to awaken pauses for a moment and listens to the inner voice that says, "You are not an effect. You are cause. You are not a body drifting in a sea of external forces. You are consciousness projecting itself. An undisciplined mind is like a projector running wild. It plays old movies, repeats painful scenes, holds on to characters that should have left the stage long ago, but are still acting because you keep feeding them. This is why the goal is not to change the world. It is to change your consciousness. It is not to change your relationships. It is to elevate your idea of yourself. It is not to chase more money. It is to dissolve the consciousness of lack. When you affirm, "I am complete, I am free, and I am guided by the divine mind," you are not trying to achieve something. You are changing the content of your consciousness. And when the content changes, so does the reflection. Not because the world has changed, but because your projection has been replaced. Every true spiritual teaching begins with this supreme affirmation: there is only one power in the universe, and that power is God. Anything that contradicts this truth, whether theological, philosophical, or emotional, is at its root an error. Error not as a moral sin, but as spiritual ignorance, the forgetting of the principle. As long as you believe, even in the deepest recesses of your mind, that there are two opposing forces, one of good and one of evil, one of light and one of shadow, one that gives and one that takes, you will live in conflict. And living in conflict is living in illusion. Life ceases to be a burden the very moment you recognize, not as a theory, but as a living certainty, that there is no real opposition to good. There is no other power acting upon your destiny. True peace is born when you understand that everything that happens, when filtered through an aligned consciousness, becomes good. Not because everything is good in itself, but because there is no longer anyone in you who can oppose God. Everything that exists was called into existence by the Word. Before any language existed, the Word vibrated in the substance of the universe. The Word is not just a sound, it is an original vibration, an immutable silent decree that acts from supreme consciousness and is incarnated every time someone says, "I am." I am is not a common affirmation. It is not a formula, nor just another tool. It is the name of God, the name of being, the eternal name of the one who has no beginning or end. And when you speak it, you are aligning yourself with the source of all power. Whatever you add after that sacred name becomes law for your life. That's why it's so vital that you understand what you are saying. Because if you say, "I am weak, I am sick, I am poor," you are sealing your world with decrees of error. But here lies the great revelation. It's not about using "I am" to get things. It's about remembering what you already are. When you say, "I am abundant," you are not trying to create wealth. You are remembering that your true nature is fullness. When you say, "I am health," you are not trying to heal yourself. You are allowing eternal life to flow unobstructed through your being. Every affirmation from "I am" does not seek to achieve. It seeks to express. Manifestation does not begin with desire. It begins with identity. All visible creation has an invisible origin, Every form was first born as an idea. Just as a mold shapes molten metal, thought shapes the word. And the word needs an aligned thought to manifest in order. It is not enough to desire, you must think from being. Desire without consciousness is merely anxiety, hunger that does not understand its own origin. God did not create the universe by wishing for something to happen. God thought, and in thinking, the word manifested. When you think from being, your thought becomes a sacred mold, and the word pours into that mold and produces form. But if your thought is scattered, if your mind lives between fear and doubt, the word cannot find a pure mold, and creation appears distorted. An undisciplined mind is like a house without foundations. It wavers in the wind and surrenders to the noise. There are those who believe that merely thinking is enough, that mental clarity alone can transform the world. But anyone who has tried to live through mental affirmation without true feeling has quickly encountered an invisible wall between what is declared and what is manifested. That wall is the absence of emotional embodiment. If thought designs, feeling builds. If thought directs, feeling gives life. Every thought without feeling is a seed without water. I am not speaking of human emotion. Human emotion is reaction, it is impulse, it is the ebb and flow of the ego. It cries, it gets excited. It is useful for drama but useless for true manifestation. Spiritual feeling, on the other hand, is silent certainty. It is serene joy. It is love without an object. It is peace that does not depend on circumstances. When you decree from the I am and you feel what you say as living truth, your whole soul acknowledges it as fact. And from that instant, the world begins to align to reflect it. If you say, I am perfect health, but you say it with fear, the thought has not been embodied. But if you say it from an inner peace that needs no explanation, from a gratitude that demands no proof, then feeling completes creation, and what was once only word becomes flesh. Finally, speech is not an accessory of thought. It is not merely a vehicle for social expression. It is power. It is creation. It is law. The visible universe emerged through the spoken word. Every time you speak, you are sowing into the invisible field of spirit, and that field, as infallible as every divine law, produces whatever is planted with persistence and feeling. The soul that still sleeps believes it can speak without consequence. It believes it was just joking. But the awakened soul guards its language as one who protects a sacred temple. Do you want to know the quality of your consciousness? Listen to how you speak. Listen to what you declare every day. If you repeat, I can't, I don't have, it's difficult for me, you are planting limitation. The law does not distinguish between a joke and an affirmation. It only distinguishes between what you sustain and what you neglect. Use your speech as an instrument of truth. Cancel the word of error. Replace that decree. Speak to establish. Do not speak just to speak. Speak for the I am. Your speech is your brush. Your world is the canvas, and your consciousness is the palette. And the word you pronounce is the stroke that defines the form. Declare it with intention, and you will see that your world will no longer be an accident, but a living work of spiritual art.